of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course Mmpc 011 titled Social Processes and Behavioral Issues for MBA Program. Presenting Block 1 titled Introduction to Organizational Behavior. Unit 2 Approaches to Organizational Behavior.
Objectives. After going through this unit, you should be able to understand 1. Meaning of and approaches to organizational behavior (OB). 2. OB components and models. 3. Systems view of OB. 4. Components of formal organization system. And 5. Model for management of OB. Introduction. We have examined the open system and institutional perspectives of society and organization, the society-environment-organization interface, social processes as sources of human behavior in general, and at work, process levels from individual micro level to society macro level, and changing society and organizations in India in the previous unit. In this unit, we will discuss the conceptual framework of OB, its systems view, and components of formal organization system. As OB is an applied science, a model guiding the learners to choose their preferred managerial style is given at the end. Meaning of and approaches to organizational behavior (OB). OB is the body of knowledge and people skills that helps managers to understand, analyze, predict, and manage or control human behavior at work. The body of knowledge is enriched by social sciences such as psychology, sociology, anthropology, economics, philosophy, politics, law, ethics, and moral sciences, thereby resorting to an interdisciplinary approach. In a limited way, biological sciences like human anatomy and genetics, and physical and environmental sciences have influenced the OB theory. The interdisciplinary approach helps to understand and analyze the causes and nature of human behavior. These two levels are reactive, that is, action taken after the behavior is manifest. They work upon the notion that behavior is caused. The OB precepts are used to know the why and what part of human behavior at work. No doubt that this is the foundation on which the prediction and control of behavior rests. The human or people skills of managers make use of OB as an applied science in order to proactively predict and control human behavior in organizations. The basic notion is that causes of behavior may not be always traced to organizational conditions. The social influences, group norms, and personal attributes and values which shape the individual differences could also be contributory. While managers to some extent can address to the human behavior by associating it with organizational causes, they cannot change the social, group, and individual causes. The prediction of human behavior pattern is an area which can rely upon the causative aspects of behavior, but the control of behavior needs a fully proactive approach that has to aim at managing consequences of behavior. Here, the OB processes are used for developing the how to manage part of human behavior at work. Besides the interdisciplinary approach, OB is enriched by the human resources, contingency, and systems approach. Human resource approach is developmental, contributing to individual, group, and organizational development. The contingency approach is based on situational variations involving actors, time, and space dynamics. Open systems approach combines all these approaches. So, the systems approach is adopted for the study of OB, which provides for a rich crop of strategies to refine and motivate human behavior at work. Unit 1 has details about the open system perspective of organizations. OB components and models. OB combines two terms, namely A. Organization, concept, structure, and process. Organization is the pattern of ways in which large numbers of people, too many to have intimate face-to-face contact with all others and engaged in a complexity of tasks, relate themselves to each other in the conscious, systematic establishment and accomplishment of mutually agreed purposes. It is also known as the rational coordination of activities of a number of people for the achievement of some common explicit purpose or goal through division of labor and function and through a hierarchy of authority and responsibility. It is also described as, quote, a continuing system of differentiated and coordinated human activities utilizing, transforming, and welding together a specific set of human, material, capital, ideational, and natural resources into a unique problem-solving whole engaged in satisfying particular human needs in interaction with other system of human activities and resources in its environment. Unquote. These three definitions define organization as a structure, process, and system respectively. Organization is represented by a pyramid design comprising people, structure, and technology. Individual differences, whole person, Gestalt theory, that is the whole to be greater than the sum of its parts, and human dignity are the features of people component. These three indicate that although management generally tries for a fit for all institutionalization, when it comes to controlling human behavior at work, individual differences of each organism, be it individual or group or organization, shall be taken into account. At the same time, the whole person combining the personal, psychological, emotional, spiritual, social, cultural, economic, and political aspects of an organism needs to be identified and addressed. Human dignity and basic human rights need to be protected in class and power permeated organizations. The machines, tools, and methods of production, along with the technical know-how and skills indicating the human face of technology, compose the technology component. Technological determinism, meaning that technology determines all aspects of organizational structuring and functionings, greatly emphasized. It determines the interface between mechanistic and organic structures and processes, ergonomics, man-working environment adjustment, human engineering, man-machine compatibility are area addressed by technology. Technology also determines the people's skill, job positioning, and status structure. Organization structure is created by the interface between people and technology. It embodies authority-subordinate structure reflected in the hierarchy, functional specialization, and division of labor depicted in its lateral or horizontal form. It also envisages the vision, mission, goal, policies, and rules providing the energy and purpose to the structure. The authority, subordinate vertical structure is based on certain principles as given below. 1. The chain of command determines the flow of direction or line of command. 2. The span of control identifies the ratio of the subordinates to superiors. 3. Authority is institutional and not personal. 4. The CEO has delegated authority from the institutional framework. 5. Authority generates responsibility, so greater the authority, more the responsibility. The CEO cumulatively is ultimately responsible for every act of omission or commission in the organization. 6. Authority can be delegated, but not the responsibility. 7. If authority is more than responsibility, then it may be abused. If responsibility is more than authority, then it cannot be complied with. Even though authority generates responsibility, a mechanism should be there to maintain a balance, because authority has a tendency to transgress the limits. Underuse of authority is also unproductive. 8. Authority flows from top to the bottom. The acceptance theory of Chester I. Barnard and giving of orders principle of Mary Parker Follett suggest that if the authority and orders are accepted by the subordinates, it becomes more effective. It gives a bottom-to-top scheme of authority. But In organizational process, it is not feasible proposition. It holds good to the extent of legitimacy and effectiveness of authority. 9. Accountability establishes linkages in terms of subordinates, compliance to the authority, and gauging the extent of compliance. It is a bottom-up process. 10. The horizontal structure is devised on division of labor and functional specialization. Decentralization and coordination are the forces which sustain this structure. The above-mentioned elements of organizing structure process emanate from bureaucratic principles. Max Weber propounded bureaucracy as an ideal and rational structure tested over a period of time and space. Specialization and division of labor, and employment based on technical qualification, positions arranged in a hierarchy wherein promotions are made according to seniority or achievement. Ideal bureaucrat at the apex who is protected against arbitrary dismissal and expected to maintain impersonal relations, and a system of impersonal rules are the features of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has been profusely criticized. Karl Marx believed that bureaucrats are used by dominant capitalistic class to control and exploit the lower working class. He believed that bureaucracy can be as effective as the person at the apex. Parkinson's law that bureaucratic staff increases in inverse proportion to the amount of work done, and Peter's principle that in bureaucracy, people rise to the level of incompetence indicate the weakness of bureaucracy. Dysfunctions are seen in bureaucratic functions, namely 1. Specialization and division of labor apparently increases efficiency and productivity, but at the same time, it creates conflict between the specialized unit to the detriment of organization, like line staff conflict. 2. The functional attributes of hierarchy are that it maintains unity of command, coordinates activities of personnel, reinforces authority, responsibility and accountability chain, and serves as the formal system of communication. In theory, it has both downward and upward orientation, but in practice, it has turned out to be having only downward emphasis. Thus, individual initiative and participation are often blocked. Upward communication is impeded, and there is no recognition of informal communication. 3. Ideal bureaucrat never exists really. Nobody can be really impersonal, and the whole success of bureaucracy rests on the flimsy impersonal conduct of the ideal bureaucrat. 4. Rules are supposed to be inviolate and non-discriminatory, but seldom are they. Rules have earned the notorious distinction of red tape and often become more important than goals. Delay and distortion in communication become a rule by itself under bureaucracy. The modern organization designs. Modern organization designs are conceived due to the changes that have occurred on account of globalization and resultant mergers and expansions. The philosophical challenges to bureaucracy also induced its reduced importance. The philosophical challenges are as follows. 1. Bureaucracy does not allow personal growth, expects conformity and groupthink, does not take into account the informal organization, does not have conflict resolving mechanism to resolve role conflict, line staff conflict, and above all, it is so rigid structure that it cannot assimilate new technology and change. So, Warren G. Bennis, a strong critique of bureaucracy, had predicted its doom because it never bothered about the exchange balance between the organization and individual. 2. The group theory of Renes's Lickett highlights the role relations resulting into more group-to-group relations rather than the individual-individual relations. It breaks both the horizontal boundaries and vertical linkages in the line form of hierarchical bureaucracy. 3. The organization as open system almost declared the death knell of bureaucracy by giving importance to not only internal systems but also external systems. The organization environment dependency and the information processing imperatives also expected the organization structure to be more flexible. 4. The contingency approach of Lawrence and Losch outlined the important role of organization in differentiation and integration as strategies adopted by them to adjust with vagaries of change. Galbraith expanded it still by further linking certainty and uncertainty faced by organizations with mechanistic and organic structures respectively. Duncan, in his decision tree model, conceived simple and complex environments being addressed by static and dynamic organization structures. Project design. Project is a time-bound prioritized goal. Every organization will have such goals, which are distinguished from generic policy objectives and addressed. There could be many projects at any given point of time. The project staff would emanate from the functional structure and assimilate back into it after completion of the project. Thus, it breaks all the tenets of bureaucracy, inbreeding great flexibility in the organization structure, and even breaking the line staff dichotomy. Projects require interfunctional and interhierarchical integration for their successful completion. This interdependency requires lot of flexibility in ideation and execution. Individual, staffs, intermix, and aggregate are some of the types of project structure. Matrix design. When a project structure is superimposed on the functional structure, the result is the matrix. Matrix design is largely laterally spread. It violates the hierarchy and line staff division. It breaks informal groups which emerge out of relatively more permanent work groups. Matrix design creates a repository of specialists available in the functional structure, free from organization or linear structure. SBU model, transnational or geographical model of organization structures are used by MNCs. These are largely modular design with a central hub surrounded by a network of production units or outside specialist service providers. Rather than being housed under one roof or located within one organization's services, such as accounting, design manufacturing of parts, marketing and distribution networks, are outsourced to outside agencies that are connected electronically to a central office and expected to perform as per the standards prescribed by the main company in the mutually agreed upon job contract. This design is not only cost effective as the expenses on machine tools, material resources are borne by the contracting out company, but also reduces administrative overhead cost. Concept and approaches to the study of behavior. Behavior is activity directed towards goal. Manifestation is essentially to be recognized as behavior. Latent state of mind is the psyche of which cognition is an important feature. Cognition is an inherent ability to comprehend, compare, and cognize. It is the cognitive ability that receives, organizes, and responds to external stimulus, thereby playing a crucial role of bringing about parity between the latent state of mind and manifest behavior. The following are some important approaches to OB. 1. Sigmund Freud's model is characterized by three interrelated but often conflicting psychoanalytic frames of mind, namely ID, ego, and superego, and unconscious motivation. ID is the impulse struggling for gratification. Superego is the unconscious conscience that differentiates the right and wrong and blocks the impulses of ID. And ego is the conscious which acts as a balancing force. This inherent conflict in the intraperson explains the behavioral aberrations and clinical methods of treating mental illnesses came out of this model. Though it provides for a framework for analyzing behavior at the intrapersonal level, yet it remains a black box and cannot be applicable for analyzing behavior at interpersonal, group and organizational levels. Eric Bernay's child, adult, and parent ego stages model further explains the cognitive dissonance leading to behavioral problems. 2. The cognitive approach emphasized the positive and free will aspects of human behavior as against Freudian obsession with negative, irrational, sexually motivated human behavior. It explains the intervening and mediating conditions between stimulus and behavior in terms of expectancy. 3. Behavior is caused. Stimulus is the cause which shapes the response. It is captured by the stimulus response model, SR, espoused by the classical conditioning theory. 4. Behavior is shaped by consequences. Behavior resulting into pleasant consequences will be repeated and behavior resulting into unpalatable consequences will extinguish. This is explained by the principle of hedonism. by the cognitive theory advanced by Edward Tolman that behavior is purposive, and by the more scientific explanation of response stimulus model RS propounded by the operant conditioning theory. 5. The antecedents behavior consequence ABC model converges the above two facets of behavior, namely, behavior is caused and behavior is shaped by consequences. 6. Stimulus. Organism response SOR model attempted to focus on the organism, that is, individual differences characteristic of people, indicating the fact that same stimulus may not result in same response due to organism interventions. 7. The stimulus organism behavior consequence SOBC model takes the best of all models such as SR, RS, and SOR inclusive of the whole person and human dignity features of people. It is captured by the social learning theory of Albert Bandura when he takes the position that behavior can best be explained in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental detriments. System view of OB. The SOBC model and social learning theories adopt the system model of OB, which is universally accepted. The explanation of the systems model includes the following points. 1. Organizations have to pursue socially approved objectives. 2. No organization has its own resources. These are allocated to the organization by the society to pursue socially approved objectives. Objectives and resources, thus, are inputs drawn by the organization from the larger society, which also provides the distant and immediate environment to the organization. 3. The throughput in OB system is composed of formal organization system FOS placed in juxtaposition to individual system IS and social system SS. 4. The interface between the three in which the FOS is in the driver's seat, influencing the IS and SS, result into organizational behavior. The explanations are as given below. 1. Objectives of organization embody the inputs to the FOS. 2. Technology is essential for translating the objectives into concrete results. 3. The interface between technology and human resource culminate into a structure. 4. The structure represents both the hierarchy and functional specialization with policies and rules binding them into an organic unity. The hierarchy defines the authority-subordinate relationship in which communication plays an important role. 5. The formal requirements and expectations of the organization from its people is expressed in the vision, mission, and goal statement, which is influenced both by external environment and internal imperatives. 6. Authority presupposes the existence of leadership and decision-making. Leadership indicates the managerial style, which is discussed below in the model given by Chris Aguirre. 7. Decision-making process can be either unilateral or participative. Strategic decisions could be the premise of the top executives, but operational decisions can be participatory. Decision rationality, balancing organizational requirements, and the interests of the employee is crucial for the decisions to be effective. 8. The role of authority is to ensure compatibility between organization's expectation and employee interests so that the organization gets the best performance from its people and the employees derive job satisfaction. 9. Such a win-win situation will lead to a tendency to perform among the human resource, which is the output of the FOS. OB models. Every organization develops a particular model in which behavior of the people takes place. This model is developed on the basis of management's assumptions about people and the vision of the management. Since these assumptions vary to a great extent, these result into the development of different organizational behavior models. From the very beginning of the civilized human society, two alternative approaches have been adopted for placing trust on people. One says trust everyone unless there is a contrary evidence. Another says, do not trust anyone unless there is a contrary evidence. Naturally, interpersonal interactions take place differently under these two approaches. Following description of the organizations is worthwhile to note here. Most of our originations tend to be arranged on the assumption that people cannot be trusted or relied on even in tiny matters. However, this is only one side of the coin. For example, McGregor has given theories X and Y, and each theory makes assumptions which are quite contrary to each other. Argyris has given the concept of immaturity and maturity of people, which also provides two opposite views about the people. Thus, OB models developed on the basis of these assumptions would show great variations. However, OB models that are in practice show some kind of continuum between these two opposite poles, though they tend to lean towards a particular pole. Davis has described 4 OB models, which are as follows. Autocratic model. In the autocratic model, managerial orientation is towards power. Managers see authority as the only means to get the things done, and employees are expected to follow orders. The result is high dependence on boss. This dependence is possible because employees live on the subsistence level. The organizational process is mostly formalized. The authority is delegated by right of command over people to whom it applies. The management decides what is the best action for the employees. The model is largely based on the theory of X assumptions of McGregor, where the human beings are taken inherently distasteful to work and try to avoid responsibility. A very strict and close supervision is required to obtain desirable performance from them. Likkert's management system can be compared with the model of organizational behavior. His system, in which motivation depends on physical security and some use of desire for start and better performance, is ensured through fear, threats, punishment, and occasional rewards. Communications is mostly one way, that is downward. There is little interaction between managers and employees. The autocratic model represents traditional thinking, which is based on the economic concept of the man. With the changing values and aspiration levels of people, this model is yielding place to others. However, this does not mean that this model is discarded in toto. In many cases, the autocratic model of organizational behavior may be a quite useful way to accomplish performance, particularly where the employees can be motivated by physiological needs. This generally happens at lower strata of the organization. Custodial model. In the custodial model, the managerial orientation is towards the use of money to pay for the employee benefits. The model depends on the economic resources of the organization and its ability to pay for the benefits. While the employees hope to obtain security, at the same time they become highly dependent on the organization. An organizational dependence reduces personal dependence on boss. The employees are able to satisfy their security needs or, in the context of Herzberg's theory, only maintenance factors. These employees working under custodial model feel happy. Their level of performance is not very high. This resembles again to Herzberg's satisfier and dissatisfier. Since employees are getting adequate regards and organizational security, they feel happy. However, they are not given any authority to decide what benefits or rewards they should get. This approach is quite similar to patrimonial approach, where the basic assumption is that it is the prerogative of management to decide what benefits are best suited to the employees. Such an approach is still quite common in many business organizations in India. The phenomenon is more predominant in family-managed business organizations, where family characteristics have also been applied to the organizational settings. The basic ingredient of the family-managed system is that parents decide what is good or bad for their children, and managers decide what is good for their employees. From this point of view, this model is not suitable for matured employees. Supportive model. The supportive model organizational behavior depends on managerial leadership rather than on the use of power of money. The aim of managers is to support employees in their achievement of results. The focus is primarily on participation and involvement of employees in managerial decision-making process. The model is based on principles of supportive leadership of Likert, which is the basic ingredient of his system 4. Likert states that the leadership and other processes of the organization must be such as to ensure a maximum probability that in all interactions and all relationships with the organizations, each member will, in the light of his background, values, and expectation views, the experience as supportive and one which builds and maintains his sense of personal worth and importance. It is quite similar to the assumption of McGregor's theory Y. The supportive model is based on the assumptions that human beings move to the maturity level and they expect the organizational climate which supports these expectations. Various organizational processes, communication, leadership, decision-making, interaction, control, and influence are such that these help employees to fulfill their higher order needs such as esteem and self-actualization. Likert has shown that supportive model is best suited in the conditions when employees are self-motivated. Thus, this emphasizes not on the economic resources of the organization, but its human aspect. Manager's role is to help employee to achieve their work rather than supervising them closely. This can be applied more fruitfully for higher level managers whose lower order needs are satisfied reasonably. Organizations with sophisticated technology and employing professional people can also apply this model for getting best out of their human resources. However, this does not mean that this model can be applied in all circumstances. For example, Davis observes that the supportive model tends to be especially effective in nations with affluence and complex technology because it appeals to higher order needs and provides intrinsic motivational factors. It may not be the best model to apply in less developed nations because their employees need structures who are often at lower levels and their social conditions are different. Moreover, this model can be applied more fruitfully for managerial levels as compared to operative levels. As such, the tendency of modern management is to move towards supportive model, especially for their management groups. Collegial model. Collegial model is an extension of supportive model. The term collegial refers to a body of people having common purpose. Collegial model is based on the team concept in which each employee develops higher degree of understanding towards others and shares common goals. The employee response to this situation is responsibility. Employees need little direction and control from management. Control is basically through self-discipline by the team members. The organizational climate is quite conducive to self-fulfillment and self-actualization. Collegial model tends to be more useful with unprogrammed work requiring behavioral flexibility and intellectual environment and considerable job freedom. The various models of organizational behavior are based on the assumption of the human characteristics and how they can work best. Since situational variables are strong factors in determining the organizational processes, managers cannot assume that a particular model is best suitable for all purposes and for all situations. Rather, all the models will remain in practice and that too with considerable success. These models are basically constructed around need hierarchy. Since need hierarchy is not similar for all the employees, the same model cannot be used for all of them. The need hierarchy changes with the level of a person in the organization, level of his education, level of maturity, personality factors, and the type of work environment. Considering these factors, a particular model can be applied. Organization theorists have argued that there is a tendency to move towards the adoption of supportive model because, in this case, people may give their best because in other models, they do not find conditions conducive to give their best performance. This is why managers are taking a number of steps to humanize their organizations, such as participation, morale building, and so on, to make the organizations more effective. Managing organizational behavior. After understanding the theories of OB and systems model, it is pertinent that managers shall learn how to manage and control human behavior at work to the advantage of all. Keith Davis provides for 4 models of organizational behavior, Managers, like any human being, have mental models about people and organizations which they develop through assimilation and socialization. They should keep in mind that these four models are the essence of managerial styles in handling human behavior developed over and learnt from history. No model shall be conceived exclusively good or bad and always effective. Basing on the maturity of organizations and the people in it, all the models at different period of time and situation may be helpful. Autocratic model works with formal official authority, and power is used to oblige employees to follow orders without questions and interpretation, as the management implicitly assumes that it knows what is best. Management assumes that employees are passive and even resistant to organizational needs. They have to be persuaded and pushed into performance. And this is the management task. F.W. Taylor's scientific management largely focused on it. Employees in turn shall be obedient and exhibit high degree of compliance, that is, takes order and does not talk back. It has worked in history. Autocratic model combined with benevolence has been upheld as a workable method of managing. A compliant employee may not talk back but cannot be stopped from thought back. Pent-up feelings of frustration, insecurity, and aggression sometimes erupt to the detriment of both the organization and the employee. Satisfaction came to be an important outcome for employees under the custodial model. The managers used welfare and HR practices to keep the employees happy. The purpose, however, is perhaps to add organizational dependency atop a reduced dependency on the boss. The subordinate may extend passive cooperation under subdued conditions. Hertzberg calls it hygiene factors with no motivational value and cautions that with a satisfied need being not a motivator, psychological expectation towards autonomy and challenging responsibilities may emerge. The supportive model expects manager to give their employees more of psychological support than economic support. Rensis Licket's employee-oriented supervisor supporting Elton Mayo's small work groups in a supportive role is considered more satisfying than the economic support of welfare and HR. It is the supportive leader who makes the difference in taking people along with as a motivator. The collegial model readily adapts to the flexible, intellectual environment of project and matrix organization. It promotes teamwork, recognizes individual contributions as worthy, and instills a sense of self-discipline. To conclude, it needs appreciation that all these models have relevance depending on the situational dynamics, maturity of actors, and above all, the changing contexts. Summary. OB is the body of knowledge and people skills that helps manager to understand, analyze, predict, manage, and control human behavior at work. OB combines two components, namely organization and behavior. The organization comprises of people, structure, and technology. There are few established models of OB, which is components like person, environment, and behavior. The systems model of OB is universally accepted and it dwells around a process consistency formal organization system, individual system, and social system. The input is objectives and resources and the output as organizational effectiveness.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code Mmpc 011 titled Social Processes and Behavioral Issues. Course Coordinator Professor Srilata. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Ashok Sharma. Program assisted by Tarannum Jaha. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.